Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. This is full core press today, so we really appreciate it. As declared on Sunday, April 28th, the County of Renfrew continues to be under a state of emergency at this time. We have 7 lower tier municipalities who are currently also in a state of emergency. These include the Township of Greater Madawaska, the Township of Braeside, Horton Township, Whitewater Region, Laurentian Valley Township, the Township of Killaloe, Haggerty and Richards, and the Town of Petawawa. This has been an extremely difficult time for our residents. Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone who has been affected by these devastating floods, both here in the county and in all other areas of the country. I would like to acknowledge the swift action and assistance from the province of Ontario, specifically Minister John Yakabuski of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and Minister Steve Clark, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Upon declaring the state of emergency, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing confirmed that relief funding under the guidelines of the Provincial Ontario's Disaster Recovery Assistance Program for Ontarians would be available to our residents. On behalf of County Council and all of Renfrew County, I would also like to acknowledge the assistance from our MP, Cheryl Gallant, and from our Canadian military and the Garrison Petawawa, who have deployed hundreds of personnel and assets across the County of Renfrew to assist those municipalities and residents in need. They have also been instrumental in helping to bag and distribute over 1.2 million sandbags across the county. I also want to thank Emergency Management Ontario for their assistance during this difficult time, as well as the Renfrew County District Health Unit and Dr. Cushman for their help and partner agency. Our priorities continue to be to ensure the safety of our residents. We have engaged in the services of all departments from across the county, and I want to thank county staff and our lower tier municipality staff and those who have been working tirelessly on the front lines, including our volunteers. We know that this situation is not over yet. This is a marathon, ladies and gentlemen, not a sprint. We are expecting waters along the Ottawa River watershed to rise again as the floodwaters from the northern tributaries start to descend. And we need to be steadfast in our resolve and continue to be Renfrew County strong. I want to assure everyone that we are continuing to monitor the situation closely and remain engaged to assist and aid in our community. We will continue to have support services and boots on the ground until this is over. In the coming days, we will be announcing a public town hall meeting in cooperation with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to bring everybody up to speed on the current flood situation and relief efforts. Stay tuned to our local media announcements and the County of Renfrew's social channels for notices of the dates and times. And at this point, thank you very much, and I'm going to turn this over to our Chief Paramedic and Acting CEMC, Chief Mike Nolan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gordon. All right, thank you, Madam Warden. The current situation within the County of Renfrew remains dynamic, as we've been experiencing flood conditions now for 2 weeks. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry issued a flood watch on April 15th and a flood warning on April 20th. So with 2 weeks worth of sandbagging, heavy lifting, and community-based coordination, I think it's fair to say that the community has given its all, and with its partner agencies continues to do so over the coming days, weeks, and in fact months. The systems across Renfrew County are currently extremely high. Water levels and flows continue to be widespread, with flooding occurring throughout the county. The County of Renfrew, of course, has 4 major river systems. The Ottawa River is but one of those 4. We also have the Petawawa River system, the Bonnechere River system, and the Madawaska River system. So given that the county extends almost 8,000 square kilometers, this is very dynamic, and it's actually very difficult to generalize, in fact, what's going on in any one river or in any one river basin or section of those rivers. So I think for residents of Renfrew County who are well aware of that, it becomes very personal in terms of what's going on in their stretch of the river, on what day, and to be able to give them adequate information with that. Despite the fact that we've seen some stabilization with some sections of some rivers and lakes throughout the county, we are anticipating where there are impacts from northern waters that water levels may increase and in some cases may stabilize. We saw during the 2017 floods that the flood warning for Renfrew County was not lifted until the first week of June. Sitting in the first week of May, we can easily anticipate that we have at least another month's worth of heavy lifting ahead of us. And we're urging residents to carefully watch the forecast, watch the predictions, and not let their guard down at this time. We know that there have been incredible efforts in the construction of sandbag walls, pumping, and other flood mitigation efforts. And we need to ensure that they can withstand weeks of high level across all river systems in the county of Renfrew. We know that to date there have been over 1,000 properties affected by this flood. With that, there have been 580 permanent residences affected, primary dwellings for people in Renfrew County. That's resulted in a significant number of self-evacuations to the tune of over 150 to date. We are seeing people coming back and checking on their properties. Many people have chosen to stay home to man their pumps and continue to monitor their situation. We are checking on those individuals every day, and we've done in excess of 800 wellness checks on those individuals in the affected areas across the county of Renfrew. As the warden said, 1.2 million is an enormous amount of sandbags for a community such as ours to be able to move. And with that and the support that we've received from our partner agencies, we believe that that has gotten us to where we are today, but may not in fact get us through the next month. There will be continued effort by all agencies and volunteers across the county of Renfrew on these efforts. We know that the coming weeks will be difficult for people, and we have set up a number of places where they can go across the county of Renfrew to access psychological services, social services, as well as the work of public health. I'd also like to remind people that we have hundreds of roads closed across Renfrew County. We saw the Trans-Canada Highway closed for 5 days in Headclare-Mariah this past week, and we have some key infrastructure, such as the Latchford Bridge, that continues to remain closed. And that will be a dynamic situation that we encourage people to maintain their awareness should they be interested in coming and checking on their properties this weekend. With that, Madam Chair, I'd turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Chris Reeves.
Thank you. Thank you, Colonel.
Madam Warden, members of Provincial Parliament and members of Parliament, I want to thank Chief Nolan and yourself, ma'am, for inviting me here to say a few words. We're just one small part of this operation here. What I would say is May 3rd is the 8th day of Operation Lentus, the Canadian Armed Forces contribution to the floods across the country. Here in Ontario, Joint Task Force Central has been called to assist civilian authorities. We've incorporated Canadian Armed Forces members from across the Army, Navy, and the Air Force into this task force, and we currently have 1,200 personnel deployed across the province. In Renfrew County, that equates to almost 500 military members here supporting you men. I represent the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Canadian Regiment and several other units, including 150 members of our primary reserve. They're deployed throughout the county to assist with flood fighting efforts. Our deployment has been mostly here in the communities of Horton, Braeside, McNabb, Whitewater, and Laurentian Valley, but we have gone into critical areas as directed by the county for reconnaissance and coordination efforts. We acknowledge that, as Chief Nolan said, the situation in Ontario is constantly changing, and we're responding daily to provincial and county priorities. And as a partner in the community, we have a real responsibility to be able to move our forces where you need them most. I would just like to say that I need to commend the Renfrew County Emergency Operations staff and yourself, Madam Warden, for being a welcoming partner in this effort. And you've allowed us and our Provincial Emergency Operations Center to work quite seamlessly together. And I really commend the effort the county has put together, from volunteers to national and provincial resources. It's been great to be part of the team, And I tell you, the Canadian Armed Forces and certainly the Canadian Army here in Petawawa is happy to be able to help in our own backyard.
Pass the microphone down for Dr. Cushman now for a few comments as well. Thank you.
A whole bunch of
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to commend the warden and our elected representatives and all the professionals and volunteers we've been working for the effort that we've seen over the last 2 weeks. From a public health standpoint, it's a little different. When you look at floodwaters, you think of property and infrastructure, but our message is threefold. It's 1, safety, 2, safety, and 3, safety, because in these circumstances, people can be a little overly courageous, and they tend not to take as much care of themselves as they should. So, as I said, safety, whether it be injury or exposure to water, the cold, or even drowning. Then again, contaminated water, so bottled water, our concerns about your wells and your septic systems, our concerns about personal and hand hygiene when you're making an effort coming out of the water and somehow, taking a biscuit or a muffin, you never know what can happen. And it goes further on to electrical safety, and by and large, it covers a number of things. And I think as the warden said, this is a marathon. It's going to take a long time. There are other aspects that concern public health from in the recovery stage, the security and safety of the wells, the septic systems, mold in the homes. So this is it is a challenge, it is a marathon, and again here people have to take care of themselves, they have to realize when they're stressed out, they have to get help, and so their mental health again is another factor. What the health unit has done is we have a number of sheets with practical hints which cover most of these issues, and these have been used time and time again throughout Ontario. They've been distributed to the municipalities and they're available from our website. So I would just say that I'm proud to see the skills and the energy and the commitment of the health unit involved in this exercise, and we will continue to do everything we can to help us get through this. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr.
Cushman.
At this point, we'll open it up to the request for a few brief questions. Or if the minister would like to have a few comments.
Do you want to speak? No. Okay. This is
Who would like to begin?
I'll start with Steve Clark. I've been speaking to some municipal leaders that after the floods recede, that there will be these enormous infrastructure costs, perhaps afterward the roads will be underneath for a couple of weeks. And I guess the question would be, what will Ontario support be after the waters go down?
So we have two programs in the ministry: the Disaster Recovery Assistance for Ontarians, or DREO, as Warden Murphy spoke about, and there's the other program, the Municipal Disaster Recovery Assistance Plan, or MDRAP. So right now we've engaged with the municipality to activate the DREO program, and we'll be continuing to work with the municipality. I hope to see some of the areas today, later on today. We'll be moving forward. One of the things that was touched upon was future town hall meetings where our ministry would be available to work with citizens in terms of the application process for DREO. Our work right now is to support these people at this table and in this room to ensure that the people that are affected get the services that they deserve. So we're working collaboratively, but we will be working with the municipality on both of those programs, both the ones that will help the citizens and also deal with that municipal infrastructure need.
With the province will be places to be lean, and cuts perhaps to Conservation Ontario, etc. Will there be delayed in coming up with funding for the municipalities in particular, or will you be able to immediately post flood be able to help them with roads like the road that's going over to Garrison now, bridge that's there, $5 million helping with these very large costs to these already stressed municipalities?
Well, first of all, I want to say that you have a tremendous provincial representative in Minister Yakubuski. I'm not just saying that because he's my seatmate, and he's bigger than I am. But I, you know, all kidding aside, we every time we're involved in one of these situations, we want to make sure that we expedite the process as much as possible. We learn from every unfortunate event like this in terms of our application process in DREO. We've taken steps as a result of what we saw last year with the tornado in the Ottawa region, where we've tried to streamline the DREO program. We also have worked very diligently to try to release funds as soon as possible on the municipal infrastructure program, the MDRAP program. So we continue to work collaboratively with our ministries, but we are very, very mindful of the need to be responsive to the needs of the community. So it's a top of mind priority for my ministry, and quite frankly, other ministries within our government.
You were there in 2017 in opposition. What do you think could have been done better in 2017 that you want to do better this year?
Well, you know, I'm not going to revisit what happened in 2017. Our priority right now is the situation on the ground today. And when the county came forward and had declared, as the warden outlined, the numerous municipalities that have declared a state of emergency, we worked very closely with them to be able to activate DREO. This was the first area that we activated. Subsequently, we've activated it in Huntsville and Bracebridge, and I must say we'll be continuing to activate it based on the weather today and other conditions that are on the ground. I can foresee in the very immediate future that other communities will be part of a DREO activation. So my staff in the Municipal Service Office, not just here in Eastern Ontario, but throughout Ontario, are working with our municipal partners to be responsive and to be on the ground. But I'm not going to revisit what happened 2 years ago. We're here today, and our immediate concern is what's happening right now.
You're going to move on. Terry, you have a question?
And a lot of comparisons with the 2017 flood, but certainly different areas of the county affected this time, correct? Mike?
Yeah, certainly, 2017 at the time was a historic high, and we've either met or eclipsed that record over the past week across the county. Certainly some water management systems, such as Golden Lake, Round Lake, there are ups and downs, but what we're seeing right now, given where we're at in this process, that 2019 will soon be all that's talked about, because 2017, we've met the challenge of it in the past. We know that the recovery effort from 2017 through the recovery phase took in excess of a year and a half. So really we just finished cleaning up 2017. Now we're into 2019. With that experience under our belt, I believe that we've improved our ability to support the residents, and I think the residents themselves have done an excellent job of identifying the threat to their property and their lives, and I believe that they've reacted appropriately.
Minister Clark, as you see what people are going through, whether it be here, whether it be Ottawa, whether it be Muskoka, as you look forward, what sort of conversations does your ministry need to be having about prevention, about regulations, about floodplains, about development? Bearing in mind that, next year is only 11 months away now.
Yeah, so earlier this year I attended with my federal, provincial and territorial colleagues a meeting in Edmonton where we talked about disaster planning and recovery. We talked about the commitment of the federal government, the municipal government, and our municipal partners. And I have to say that one of the things that we in Ontario have is a very strong land use planning system. So we have a very good basis in terms of mapping and in terms of awareness among our municipalities, Ontario's 444 municipalities. But we can always do better, and we can always revisit what we're doing on the ground and work collaboratively, not just in this province, but across provinces and territories. The concept of building back better so that we're not rebuilding the same road at the same condition, where we look at climate change and try to ensure that we build to that higher standard so that we're not facing the type of expenditures year after year after year that we're facing today. So it is something that we're talking both at the provincial level, but also I wanted to make sure you realize that it's also a national conversation as well, that we need all levels of government working collaboratively on making sure that we have these plans in place.
So is 2019 really going to be a turning point year then, do you think, because of what we're seeing on the ground here?
Well, I think we're always trying to improve the process. I think being better responsive to some of these situations. We've done I think a very good job collaboratively with people, not just in this room, but across ministries in the province, to be able to be on the ground a lot faster than perhaps we have been in the past. There's always room to improve. There's always room to learn from weather events like we're dealing with. But again, we need to be collaborative. And again, I want to take the opportunity, now that you've given it to me, to just commend everyone, not just in this table, but outside of this room, the volunteers, all of the people on the ground that are trying to make a difference here in Brantford County.
For Warren Murphy, so I was talking to the Red Cross yesterday, and they said only 17 people in the county have reached out for the evacuation services. There's thousands of people displaced. Can you talk about the people in the county and just the kind of the emotion on the ground and how people are supporting other people in Brantford County?
Thanks for the question, Rudy. As long as I don't get emotional right now, because it is, as I said in my opening remarks, it is a very stressful time for everybody, and I think that there's, even at our emergency control group, there's a sense of, we're doing what we can, but there's, we do know that there are people displaced. From my social services director, I understand that many of those people that have evacuated from their properties have actually gone to family members. I heard a story that a family that didn't even know a family down the road, so a neighbor, took them in, I believe because they had a pet. And of course, some places don't take pets, and that's a big deal to people whose pets are their family. So we really do appreciate all of those good Samaritans that have taken people in during this incredibly stressful time as we see the flood waters take over their homes. Thank you.
What's the biggest challenge moving forward what's the biggest challenge during 2 weeks like this?
Well, I think to begin, and right up front, it's about understanding what the next 2 weeks has in store for us. I think that there's significant messaging, certainly, that comes out of neighboring communities that talks about what's in store for them. But we know in Renfrew County that with multiple river systems and multiple basins within those river systems, we need to give people as clear a picture as possible. So Minister Yakubuski's ministry provides us day-to-day information to keep us up to date in terms of the freshet, or what the northern waters will bring. We work with other agencies of the federal government and the provincial government to try and stay on top of that. We're trying to give people a sense of relief in that things have stabilized, but I want to reinforce that they've stabilized for now. Typically, the second run of water that comes from the north eclipses the levels that we see in the first. We're hopeful that that can be managed in such a way that we won't go higher than we've already seen this year. But that cannot be guaranteed at this time. And that's why, as we deal with the practicalities of wind, rain, and the northern waters, that people remain diligent in their efforts. People have chosen to stay home, but I'm not sure those that have chosen to stay home are in full anticipation that that could be for 4 to 6 weeks. So we'll continue to provide emergency services across the county, but we will continue to have access issues. We will continue to communicate with those individuals that are otherwise cut off, whether that be power or communications or simply their road, from the typical services that people come to rely upon. And we're working very closely with the lower tier municipalities. The leadership at the lower tier level has done an excellent job of communicating with their residents, and our job as the county is to support them and make sure that they have accurate information, timely information, but also have a backstop so that as public health, community and social services, and public work can bring their efforts to bear, that we do that in a seamless way so that everybody's taken care of equally across the county.
Number of evacuees in which should go up, we expect.
Yeah, we've seen it actually fluctuate. We're sitting in the 150 range right now. If this call was yesterday, that number may have been 180, and tomorrow it might be 140. We're actually tracking those individuals by residence to be able to identify what their needs are. But I do anticipate that as the water levels fluctuate and time passes, that some people may have sandbag wall issues where they walk away. Others may be, as we've seen with the family efforts as identified by the warden, may actually be running shifts amongst their families and friends to keep the pumps going and to protect their properties in the coming weeks.
Okay, we have time for a couple more. Anthony, did you have any?
We don't have a rep from, say, OPG here directly, but can someone maybe speak to the role of power generators? We have OPG, we have Renfrew Power.
John, you want to talk
Talk
about
about that too. How coordination perhaps has been with the control structures on the
Sure. So, as I said earlier, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry facilitates a call every day with the County of Renfrew. So it's a joint effort where we have all of the various regulators, water regulators, on the call, as well as other folks from environment, for example, to be able to give us that situational awareness. We've been doing this for many, many years, and so we have a very streamlined process where they give us the information on the day of, and in some cases, a best estimate in terms of what impact frozen ground, forecasted rain, and so on may have on those systems. But I think it's fair to say that it's an imprecise science. As weather forecasting is what it is, we know roughly how long it takes for waters to arrive in certain parts of the county, but there are so many variables associated with that that we've all taken that into our planning. Certainly working very closely with Emergency Management Ontario and our partners in the military. We're all bringing that information together, and the water regulators are but one part of that picture that we're trying to paint for the community at large.
Okay, we're going to wrap things up here in a minute. Dan, do you have anything you'd like?
I think of public health, what's the challenge public health when you have something like this go on and on?
Yeah, sorry, I think I heard this, that the challenges for public health. Public health, initially our concerns are safety. And as I said earlier, people tend to be, they're caring about their property, and they can be a little overly courageous to being carefree, so to speak. And we've heard stories and we've seen examples of that. But I think long term, it's very important with the restoration of the water systems, getting your well back into working order, getting your septic system back into working order. Is there a problem with your house? Unfortunately, water leads to mold. So these are all issues. Not only that, just cleaning up sandbags, because while the sand is relatively clean, when you fill the sandbags, given the exposure to the water, it can be, there's a serious risk of contamination. So it really, this is, we're in this for the long haul in terms of what needs to be done. And then the other issue comes up, which I mentioned briefly, is that this is a very stressful, as the warden said, this is a very stressful time period for folks, and they tend to get really burnt out. So the whole issue of how you take care of yourselves and how you deal with stress, because in a sense, it's all the stages of a grief reaction that people go through, anger, despair, all those things before they come to some resolution. So people are going to need help. Luckily, we're in a community that really groups comes together. There's a history of sort of the extended family of Renfrew County here, which will no doubt help. But the health unit is here, not only with the information we have and the skills we have in terms of our past experience to help the community deal with this.
And I think we'll wrap it up there unless there's anything further from the panel.
Well, I think I'd like to reiterate what the warden and the nurse Clark as well as Michael Nolan have said about the efforts. We've seen firsthand the work of the people at every level. different government agencies, the armed forces, and the volunteers. When you see that working together in that coordinated fashion, it really does give us a positive feeling. Even though we're in the middle of a disaster, it does give us a positive feeling about one another and about our neighbors. And the one thing that is categorically different from 2017 is the preparedness level. Not that that's a good thing. It's a good thing that we're more prepared. It's a bad thing that we're repeating this so closely to the events of 2017. But the experiences of 2017 have taught us all a lot and have given us a great deal of institutional knowledge to work from on how we deal with this flood of 2019. But the coming together. I don't know how many. I think it was somebody was saying Madawaska Valley District High School did something like 14,000 sandbags. So the high schools across the valley, the students coming out to do sandbagging. That kind of an effort that speaks so much about how people feel about one another here in Renfrew County, and it really. I think it's a great feeling for all of us in the midst of the trouble. That we can look at each other and look at one another and say we are doing whatever we can to help one another, and a lot of this now depends on how Mother Nature treats us. But I thank all the media for coming as well today, because getting the message out to the public is also a big part of helping the public deal with what they're facing. Knowing that the levels, all levels are working together to try to make this better. Is a message that the public needs to hear, and it's not that easy to get that out to everybody sometimes. So to the media who came here today, I want to thank you for that as well.
And I'd like to thank you. Thank you, Mike Barber. Mike is our emergency information officer, and he's been doing an excellent job. We do have emergency control group meetings every single day, twice a day with our senior leadership team. And he has been instrumental, he and Melissa, getting information out to you as quickly as possible. And sort of to follow up on what Minister Yakabuski said, one of the key differences this year is much better communication. It's been invaluable, sort of learning from 2 years ago that we really are all in this together, and how can we help each other. And at that, I'd really like to thank all of the panel. It's an honor to be sitting here with you, Colonel, and our Chief Paramedic, and Dr. Cushman, and thank you, Chris, for coming. And to Minister Yakabuski and Minister Clark, thank you so much for being here.